Hello dear students, today in this series of videos we are going to discuss previous year questions of computer architecture and system, and the name of the unit is computer architecture system. So this is unit 2 of NTNET syllabus, and in this unit we have 3 subjects: digital logic design, computer organization and microprocessors. So in this series of videos we will solve the questions of computer organization. Okay, so this unit is really important for NTNET examination perspective, because at least 6 to 9 questions are being asked from this subject only. Okay, what I mean to say is, in this unit 2 we have 3 subjects: digital logic design, computer architecture and microprocessor. So all these 3 units will give you at least 12 questions in NTNET examination. 12 questions means 24 marks, right? So this particular unit is really important for NTNET examination if you are targeting for JRF. Okay, because 24 marks means 8%. Okay, 8% is very big score in NTNET computer science, because 8% may make a difference from lecturership to JRF. Okay, so this unit is really important to prepare if you are going for NTNET JRF, and the questions that are being asked in this unit are moderate to difficult. Okay, what I mean to say is, you can actually predict the questions from which particular topic in this subject the questions will come. Okay, for example, most of the times they will ask the questions from addressing modes, from instruction formats, okay, and pipelining. So these are the few topics which are really important in these subjects: instruction format, pipelining, cache memory. Okay, so these are the really important topics in this subject which you should not leave. Even if you are not able to understand computer architecture system, at least study these topics. Okay, even if you read these topics, you will be able to get at least 12 to 15, 16 marks in this unit. Okay, so you will see in every examination, in every year they will ask the question from addressing modes. There is not even a single paper of NTNET where addressing mode questions are not asked. And you will see in NTNET June 2019 paper, the first question is itself on the addressing modes. So let us discuss first question, and this question is saying which type of addressing mode less number of memory references are required. Okay, so I hope you know what is addressing modes. If you do not know what is addressing modes, let me take some time, 1 minute, to explain what is addressing modes. Okay, so we have an instruction, right? And in instruction we have 2 fields. So this is your instruction, and in this instruction we have 2 fields: opcode field and operand field. Okay, like this. And for example, let us say you have an instruction add R1 R2. So in this instruction, what is operand and what is opcode? This addition operation is opcode. The full form of opcode is operation code. Okay, what operation you are going to perform on these operands? For example, you are going to perform addition operation on the values which are stored in register R1 and R2. Okay, so at the time of instruction decoding, you will come to know what kind of instruction it is. So you know that instruction cycle consists of 2 subcycles: instruction fetch and execution cycle. In execution cycle we have 3 more subcycles. For example, instruction decode, operand fetch and execution cycle. So at the time of instruction decode, you will come to know what kind of instruction you are going to execute. For example, it is an arithmetic instruction, or it is a logical instruction, or it is a jump instruction, or it is a transfer of control instruction. Like this, instruction decode cycle will tell you what kind of instruction it is. Now the question is, where are the operands stored? Okay, these are the operands: operand 1, operand 2. So operands can be stored, operands can be given in the instruction itself. Okay, or they may be found in registers, or they may be found in memory, right? So addressing modes will tell you where you will find operands. Okay, either operand will be in the instruction itself, or it will be in the registers, or it will be in the memory. For example, look at this instruction: add 3000 2000. Okay, so this is an instruction in which first operand is stored at the memory location 3000 and second operand is stored at the memory location 2000. Always remember, whenever you have something like this simply means that these are the memory locations. Okay, for example, another instruction is like this: R1 R2. This simply means that the operands will be found in the registers of CPU. Okay, registers are in the CPU. Okay, so you do not need to access memory for operands. You can simply find the operands in registers itself, right? So this question is simply asking in which addressing mode less number of memory references will be required. Okay, so let us talk about each option one by one. For example, immediate addressing mode. In immediate addressing mode, the instructions are like this: add 3020. Whenever you have hash in front of any value, that is an immediate value. What does it mean? Immediate value means this second operand is directly given in the instruction itself. You do not need to access memory or registers to access this operand. This is given directly in the instruction. This means you have to access memory location 3000, and here you will find another operand. So now what you will have to do is you will have to access memory to fetch one operand, and second operand is given in the instruction itself. Then you will perform addition operation, and finally result will be stored in the location 3000. Okay, this instruction simply means take the value from 3000. Okay, go to memory and access the value from 3000. Add the value 20 to this because 20 value directly given in the instruction. Okay, sometimes, for example, in 8085 microprocessor, immediate addressing mode is specified like this: ADI. This means add immediate. So whatever is given with this, there will be immediate values. This is immediate value, and for second operand you have to access register. Okay, so in immediate addressing mode, it is possible that you will access memory. For example, in this instruction you will have to access memory 2 times. Why 2 times? Once you will access this value, second time when you will write the result into the memory. For example, at location 3000 we have 40 value. 40 plus 20 is 60, and 60 will be stored finally at the location 3000. Okay, so in immediate addressing mode you require at least one addressing mode. Okay, maybe more or maybe less. Implied addressing mode means this addressing mode is also known as direct addressing mode. Okay, direct addressing mode. So in direct addressing mode, what happens is, in direct addressing modes, the address of the operand is directly given in the instruction, direct addressing mode. So instruction in this will be like this: add 3000, 2000. These are the direct addresses. That means the first operand will be found at location 3000, second operand will be found at location 2000, then you will add them and finally store the results in location 3000. Okay, so in direct addressing mode, the address of the operand is given in the instruction directly. Okay, then you have register addressing mode. In register addressing mode, you will use only registers. For example, instructions will be like this: add R1, R2. This means for first operand you have to access registers, for second operand you have to access registers. Okay, so like this, in register addressing mode you do not need to access any memory, so zero memory access required in this. In implied addressing mode, at least 2 or at least 1 memory access is required. In indexed addressing mode also you require memory access. So the answer for this question is 3. Right, remember this. You may mark this answer incorrectly. You may make a silly mistake in this. The silly mistake will be like this. For example, if someone have studied immediate addressing mode, then he will think that in immediate addressing mode directly values are given in the instruction, so you do not need to access memory. So you may mark this question, but this is false. In immediate addressing mode, you may have to access memory for one operand. Okay, for second operand maybe direct value is given. So for this question, the answer is 3. That is register addressing mode. In register addressing mode, you do not need to access any memory. So this question is saying, suppose that the register A and the register K have the bit configuration. Only the 3 leftmost bits of A are compared with the memory words because K has 1s in these positions. Because of its organization, this type of memory is uniquely suited for parallel search by data association. This type of memory is known as which of these? RAM, ROM, content addressable memory, or secondary memory. Okay, so before solving this question, I would like to explain a special kind of memory which is called as associative memory. Okay, so after explaining that kind of memory, you will be able to answer this question by yourself. Okay, so I will take 1-2 minutes to explain this kind of memory. So in associative memory, what happens is, normally what happens, so if CPU want to access memory, for example, CPU want to fetch something from main memory. So what CPU need to do is, CPU will generate the address from where it want to access. For example, CPU want to read from location 3000. Okay, so CPU will generate address, okay, from where it want to read. So CPU, the memory request of CPU will be in this form: address and read operation, or it may be write operation. For example, it will put address 3000 on the address bus and data that it want to write on the data bus, and control lines will have read operation. So like this, CPU will generate the request for read and for write operation. Okay, so normally this happens in main memory. But we have a special kind of memory in which CPU does not need to generate the address. CPU can simply generate the data, and this data can be searched in the memory. Okay, we have a special kind of memory in which we can search the data on the basis of data. Okay, you can search data on the data. That means you do not need to generate the address of that location. So an associative memory can be considered as a memory unit whose stored data can be identified for access by the content of the data itself, rather than by an address or memory location. That's what I'm saying. So you can identify your data from the memory with the help of data. For example, in this memory we have values 20, 30, 40, 50, like this. In this main memory, these values are stored. So CPU can directly generate data, for example 20, and with the help of data, with the help of this content of the data, we can search into the memory parallelly. Okay, we can search into all the words parallelly. Okay, we will see how. We will see the diagram. Associative memory is often referred to as content addressable memory. This kind of memory is also known as content addressable memory. When a write operation is performed on associative memory, no address or memory location is given to the word. Okay, so none of these words will have any address. They will be accessed on the basis of content of the data. The memory itself is capable of finding an empty or unused location to store the data. So if CPU want to write anything to memory, CPU will simply generate the data. It will not generate address like this. Okay, it will simply generate the data, and it will generate the control signal that I want to write this data into the memory. Okay, memory is capable of finding the free location for this data. Okay, you do not need to search for free address, right? So on the other hand, when the word is to be read from an associative memory, the content of the word or part of the word is specified. The words which match the specified content are located by the memory and are marked for reading. If you want to read, you simply need to compare few bits of the word which you want to read with the words stored in the main memory. Okay, for example, let us say you want to search this word. Okay, this is a 8-bit word, and you want to search this in the memory. So you simply need to compare these 3 bits to search into the memory. Wherever these 3 bits will be matched with any word stored in the memory, that word will be accessed. Okay, so for that purpose we have some kind of registers. Okay, I will show what kind of registers we have. For example, first we have argument register. In argument register we will have which data we want to search. For example, you want to search for 11001110. Key register will have some date, some key. Okay, for example, let us say key is this. So you will simply match the words where ones are matching. Okay, for example, in this key register you have ones which are matching at these positions. Okay, these 3 positions. So you simply will find these 3 locations in the memory wherever any kind of word in which at this location, for example, location bit number D7, bit number D6 and bit number D1. On these locations we have ones that will be accessed. This match register is a register which will keep 1 bit for every word. For example, let us say we have 8 words in this memory. For example, if we have m words, the size of this match register will be m bits, because for every word we will keep a bit in this match register. This will be used to search into the associative memory. With the help of match register we can find out the required word. So that's how content addressable memory works. Okay, so I hope you now you can answer by yourself what is the answer for this question. The answer for this question is content addressable memory, in which we have a key register, we have an argument register. Okay, this argument register bits are compared with the key bits. Wherever key has ones in these positions, as I told you, the bits of A are compared. Okay, so in content addressable memory, you can directly read or write on the basis of content of the word. Okay, in RAM, you need to generate the address. In secondary memory also, you need to generate the address. In ROM also, you need to generate the address. But in content addressable memory, CPU can directly generate the address, and you can CPU will directly generate the data, and you can search that data into the memory on the basis of the content of the data. Content means what is the value of the data. So let us now move to the next question, and this question is simply saying the fault can be easily diagnosed in the microprogram control unit using diagnostic tool by maintaining the content of which one. So this question is simply about the control unit, and this is one of the advantages of control unit. For example, if I will show you the advantages of microprogrammed control unit. Okay, I hope you have studied what is microprogrammed control unit. If you have not studied, I will give you a background. So we have a control unit, and control unit simply generates the control signals. Okay, this control unit is responsible for generating the control signals. And control signals can be generated on the basis of two methods. Either we can generate the control signal with the help of a microprogram, or you can say with the help of software, which is embedded into the ROM, which is read-only memory, or with the help of hardware, which is called as hardwired. Okay, you can hardwire the microprogram into the hardware itself. Okay, so control signals can be generated with the help of a program or with the help of a hardware. Okay, so in microprogrammed control unit, we have two kind of microprogrammed control unit, that is vertical and horizontal. In vertical, we will use the control signals in encoded pattern. Okay, vertical and horizontal. For example, if you have, let us say, 64 control signals. For 64 control signals, you need to simply have 6 bits. Okay, because we will use an encoder, and we will take the help of encoder in which 64 signals can be encoded with the help of 6 bits. Okay, so we will simply use 6 to 64 encoder, which can help us to encode a control signal from 6 bit to 64 bits. In horizontal control unit, we will have 1 bit per signal, 1 bit per control signal. For example, if you have 64 control signals, so you will have to keep 64 bits for control signals in the control word. Okay, so you can read these advantages. These are the advantages of microprogram control unit. The design of microprogram control unit is less complex because microprograms are implemented using software routines. That's what I was telling. Microprogram control unit can be implemented using the microprogram, that is a software which is embedded into the ROM. Okay, which you cannot modify. So microprogram control unit is more flexible because design, modification, correction and enhancement is easily possible. Okay, because in hardwired unit, if you want to add any more instruction, you will have to redesign the whole circuit. Okay, because hardware is what? Circuits. If you want to do any modification, you have to modify whole circuit, and it will take a lot of time and cost. But in microprogram control unit, if you want to add more instructions, you can simply modify the program and you will be adding simply. But you always know, if we are doing something with the help of software, or if we are doing same thing with the hardware, so it will be faster with the help of hardware. Okay, so obviously hardware is faster than the software. If anything is done with the help of hardware, it will be faster. Okay, so obviously hardwired unit is faster, but microprogram control unit is more flexible. You can add any more instructions. The new or modified instruction set of CPU can easily be implemented by simply rewriting or modifying the content of the control memory. That's what I told you. You can simply modify the microprogram which is stored in the control memory. Okay, and the fault can be easily diagnosed in the microprogram control unit using diagnostic tools by maintaining the content of flag, registers and counters. Okay, so this question is directly taken from the book, and they have just written from here to here in the questions, and then next 3 words are used as a options. Okay, you can read this. Same thing. I have taken this particular point from the book. Same lines are written in the question. Okay, so sometimes they directly ask the question from the books, so it's better to study books. Okay, so the answer for this question is flag, registers and counters, right? So that's what given here. So by maintaining the content of flags, registers and counters, all these 3 need to be required. So this question is from June 2019 and 2 marks question. So this question is saying the minimum number of page frames that must be allocated to a running process in a virtual memory environment is determined by which of these following. So we know what is virtual memory. Virtual memory is part of disk which is used to execute a larger program than the main memory. For example, if you have a main memory of 2 GB, you can execute a program, you can execute a process which is of 4 GB with the help of virtual memory. You can keep a virtual memory which is part of disk. Remember, virtual memory is the part of hard disk, and let us say we have a virtual memory of 8 GB. So you can keep some part of this process into the virtual memory, and you can load the some required part into the main memory. So if you are using virtual memory, you do not need to load complete process into the main memory. You can keep the part of this process into the virtual memory, and you can load the required part into the main memory. Whenever you require any part, for example, complete process is divided into pages. Okay, for example, let us say you have a process and the size of the process is, for example, 64 MB. And the page size is, for example, let us say 512 KB. So you can divide this process into pages. For example, number of pages in this process will be 64 MB, that is 2 to the power 26 bytes. Okay, we know MB means 2 to the power 20. KB means 2 to the power 10. Right? GB means 2 to the power 30. 2 to the power 30 bytes equals to 1 gigabytes. Okay. So we can divide the process into pages, and 512 KB means 2 to the power 19. Why? Because 512 means 2 to the power 9, KB means 2 to the power 10. That means 2 to the power 19. So this will be 2 to the power 7. 2 to the power 7 means 128 pages. So this process will have 128 pages. So what you will do is, you will keep all these pages into the virtual memory. Whenever a page is required, you will load this page from virtual memory to main memory. Okay, so there are two tasks which are really important for virtual memory management. First one is page replacement strategy. Okay, so we will study what is page replacement algorithms, like last in first out, okay, first in first out, LRU, okay, MRU, optimal page replacement algorithm. And the second very important task of virtual memory is frame allocation strategy. Frame allocation strategy means how many frames should be allocated to a particular process, because there are many processes which are running into the system, and all the processes should be in the main memory if they want to run. Okay, not completely, at least one page of each process should be in the memory which want to run. Okay, so frame means we are talking about the main memory. Always remember, when we are talking about frames, that means we are talking about the main memory. Main memory is divided into frames and virtual memory is divided into pages. Okay, so frame allocation strategy gives the idea of minimum number of frames which should be allocated. The absolute minimum number of frames that a process must be allocated is dependent on the system architecture. Okay, so for example, in 32-bit architecture, it will be different strategy. In 64-bit architecture, it will be different strategy. In operating system Windows 10, it will be different. In Ubuntu, it will be different. So it will totally depend on the kind of instruction set architecture. What is mean by instruction set architecture? Instruction set architecture will keep all the instructions, addressing modes, okay, instruction format, and what will be the frame allocation strategy. Okay, so this will be decided by the instruction set architecture. So for every instruction set architecture, we will have a specific frame allocation strategy. Okay, so the answer for this question is 3. The same question is also asked in GATE 2004. Okay, so this question is directly copied from GATE 2004, and so you will see in NTNet they ask many questions from GATE and ISRO. So you should also solve GATE questions and ISRO questions to have a good practice. If you want to, if you are really targeting for JRF, you should really keep solving the questions of GATE Computer Science and ISRO Computer Science. Okay, so you will find in every year they will ask at least 3-4 questions from previous GATE questions or ISRO questions directly without modification. So this is directly copied. Okay, so let's meet in the next question.